I was born in April in 1981 in Los Angeles County, right during the biggest gang war of the Bloods and the Crips, but most notably during the crack cocaine era. My mother was from Sacramento, California, and moved to Los Angeles. Both my parents originally are from Louisiana, but my mom moved to California when she was young. So did my father. But he was, at the time that I was born, 26 years old. A young man without his father, knowing his own biological father, a graduate of Dominguez High School in 1973. He was a man that had two babies at the age of 17 within 4 or 5 days apart from one another, and never really understood what fatherhood was really about until one day his sister was killed. Sister was killed and set on fire, and he went to a church looking for somebody to help him, and he found a preacher that kind of took him underneath his wings, and he married my mother. Then they had me. But my mother being 5 years older than my dad, there were some issues, stressful issues. My dad was very inexperienced and didn't really have a really strong support system, so he found himself smoking some weed, selling weed from time to time. Then cocaine here and there. Then crack cocaine. Now, for a while, he lived a pretty basic life. He was still working, holding jobs, going to church. He was the head of the deacon board. But little by little, his life started slipping away, to the point that at some instance, he was missing sometimes 3, 4, 5, or 6 days at a time. His crack addiction got the best of him. He was losing everything. He found himself almost killed, shot 5 different times in drive-by shootings. One shooting particularly on purpose, shot in the back of the head, almost got killed. The bullet was this close to his brain, still there to this day. And my dad couldn't kick the habit. It got so bad that my mom said, I'm moving back to Sacramento. You can come or you can stay here. He came. The only problem was Sacramento had crack cocaine too. Now, when a child is young and the dad is on crack, you suspect that something is wrong because your dad, who you look up to, who took you to ride your bike and all this stuff, he's supposed to be there and he's missing. And I can remember when my dad told me that he was crack addicted. I was 7 or 8. I cried. But when I got to Sacramento and I started going to an elementary school, which is now called North Avenue, other kids knew that my dad was on crack cocaine. So not only was it an eternal problem, other kids who had their uncles on crack knew about it. And it was embarrassing to everybody knows that in your church or at your school, that's why your daddy is a crackhead. Your daddy is on crack. Your daddy is a loser. Your daddy is a bum. Everybody knows it. The neighbors know it. They don't say anything. Your grandmother knows it. Your grandfather knows it. And and the people who know that your dad is out there struggling, they try not to talk bad about your dad in front of them, but it kind of comes out and it breeds an animosity between your dad, your mom's parents. It's just a struggling situation. And at this moment, when you grow up in a community where your mom is trying to recover, your parents are trying to recover, and which my dad did around 1991. He was fully off drugs and got accepted into a registered nursing program. He's been a nurse for over 25 years now. Graduated from UCLA. My mother went to UC Davis. But you grow up with this particular pain sometimes that you don't even know it exists with you, but you know that you have every excuse in life to fail. You know that I got a reason to not be anything because my dad was addicted to crack. I shouldn't have to be a doctor or be a lawyer or be an entrepreneur because I come from these bad circumstances. I went to double casket funerals. I've seen people die. I've seen all these bad things. I don't have any positive role models. And then when it sets in on you that nobody gives a damn about what you've been through. I'm going to say it again. That nobody gives a damn about what you've been through. That is when you understand life is not a game. You know, I'm here to say this today because the title of the video is How to Overcome a Crack Addicted Parent. I've talked about you being let down by somebody you look up to. I talked about the humiliation that you get in the community where people know your situation. But then to know that you can't use that as an excuse. That is how you overcome having a drug addicted parent. Because nobody cares. You know, I applied for my first job for the city of Sacramento, my first official job in 1994. It asked me a lot of questions. What is your name? What is your birth date? What is your social security number? Why do you want this job? Why should we hire you? What school are you going to? But I looked for the spot where it said, was your parent addicted to crack cocaine? Sympathy, please write it here. And do you know what? It never happened on any job application. I worked for KFC. I worked for Albertsons. I worked for AT&T. I worked for many big companies. Some I've made a lot of money at, very successful. Nobody asked me that because at the end of the day, only thing folk want to know is, can you do the job? If you want to make it, you are a man. Nobody who has no sympathy for you. You are a black man. Nobody's going to care about you. Now, your mama going to give you sympathy, but she going to die one day. Probably before you do. So when your mama not going to give you no sympathy, the world not going to give you no sympathy. So right then and there, I understood that I had to compete even against people that come from better circumstances. Because if you're going up against a student from Stanford University, 4.0 GPA, parents are rich, and you have a 3.5 and your parents are crack addicted, who are they going to take? The best choice. Because nobody cares about what you have been through. Nobody cares about your destructional or dysfunctional habits or what destruction that somebody did to you. Oh, you've been molested, or you've been raped, you've been touched, or you've been burned. You know, nobody cares. There's no school, or there's no contest, or there's no pity place or pity jobs or pity salaries for those who have been abused and hurt in the world. And see, this is important for many of us who have come from some type of drug addiction ourselves, or drug addiction parents. You know, they have programs for that, but you got to pick yourself up and know that, yes, your parents can make a mistake. Yes, you can make a mistake, but you have to will yourself to the victory. You have to do it for yourself regardless. Because nobody is going to give you an excuse. You can cry history of racism, and the white man brought crack to these black communities, and therefore I am a victim. And you very well might have a point, but nobody cares about that. Not Democrats, not Republicans, not independents, not the Green Party, because everybody doesn't have the same equal playing field, but you have to make it equal, even if it's unequal. Only you can do it. You know, there was Smokey the Bear. He had a saying, only you can prevent forest fires. Only you can overcome a drug addicted parent. Only you can overcome a cycle of abuse. Only you can overcome alcoholism. Only you can do these things. Only you have to have the will and desire to say, it don't stop me. That's not going to stop me. It's not a hindrance to me. I've been there. I went through it, but I'm stronger than that. It's okay. Because everybody goes through something. People have cancer. People have genetic diseases. People have mental retardation. People have some sort of struggle that they're dealing with. Sometimes money can't stop your struggle. Just because you have money don't mean you have problems. People have all kind of problems despite the class that they're in, and they got to overcome it. And so do you. You got to do it for your goddamn self. And just try to make sure that you don't fuck your kids' life up. Try to make sure that you don't make a mistake that your parents made, or that your uncle made, or that somebody else that you know that you love made. And get out there and give it your best every day. Try to do the best you can. Because after all, that's what you can do. Leave it out there on the field. Hope for a better day. Actually, don't hope for a better day. Make it a fucking better day. As you know, the buffoonery remains at an all-time high. Subscribe to my second channel, Oshay Duke Jackson. I'm going to be doing my live streams over there. Subscribe to it. Subscribe also to my Oshay Vlogcast channel. Both of my channels, I want you to hit the bell, subscribe. Peace. They're in the description.